Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first meeting of the Wyandotte County World Cup Readiness Task Force. Sorry, we're getting used to the mics here. My name is Alan Carr. I'm the Executive Director of Visit Kansas City, Kansas, and I will be chairing this task force. This task force was created by Mayor Garner, and I want to thank him for creating this task force to help Wyandotte County get ready for this amazing opportunity that we have ahead of us in 2026. And I also want to wish him a speedy recovery as he is out right now. A couple just reminders for the folks here in the room. This is a public meeting, and so it is being recorded and available on the UG channels. We also have some people joining online. So if you will use your mic that's in front of you when you are speaking, and just make sure you press the button to turn it on, and then you can turn it off at your leisure. So we have a short agenda today in terms of items, but I think we have a lot of things to talk about within there. This is the first meeting of this group. And so this is really to kind of help us organize what we need to do to get ready here. And so today we're going to treat as a working session, as an organizational meeting, to really talk through how we want this group to function and what areas that we need to focus on. There's a couple things I want to say at the outset, though, to kind of set the stage. The first is we know this is a massive opportunity for the Kansas City region, likely one of the largest events that we can ever host as a region outside of possibly the Olympics. And in the last couple of weeks, there's been some major news that have been made. We know now how many matches will be hosted in Kansas City, with a total of 6 matches from June 16th to July 11th, 2026. This includes 4 group stage matches, a round of 32 match, and a quarterfinal, which was an amazing get that the area was able to achieve. So we have the opportunity to welcome a lot of fans during this period. We also know that we have some fantastic soccer facilities here in Wyandotte County, and Compass Minerals National Training Center is in the running to be a training site for a team, or as they call it in the KC 2026 group, a base camp. And so this provides an additional wonderful opportunity for Wyandotte County to welcome visitors of whatever team lands there for an extended period of time. We know that the entire region, led by the KC 2026 group, is working to prepare us for the 2026 World Cup. I want to kind of set some distinctions between what our responsibility is and what the bigger group is working on. We are not focused on planning any World Cup events or working with FIFA. That is all in the purview of KC 2026. Our job is to get Wyandotte County ready and make sure that we can maximize this opportunity for our citizens and make sure that visitors that come here have a fantastic time while they're on the ground here in Wyandotte County. At the end of the day, we are a group that is tasked with making some recommendations to the mayor, to the county administrator, and to the commission on how Wyandotte County can best maximize this opportunity. So with that, I would like to turn it over to for introductions for the rest of our task force group. So we'll start here in the corner with Francisco. I'd love just to talk about your role, why you're here, and what you're excited about for this opportunity.
Sure, thank you. My name is Francisco Litardo. I'm with Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools in Community Engagement and Government Liaison work. So I'm happy to join this group here. What I'm most excited about, I feel like I'm coming full circle. In 1994, I was involved with the World Cup soccer games in the Boston venue as press operations manager, right smack in the middle of Foxborough Stadium, as it was known back then. And so this is exciting for me now to be in Kansas City with a World Cup coming here again and participating alongside of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Mayor Pro Tem Tom Burrows, just really excited to have an opportunity to be part of the dialogue that's going to ensure that we put the best face on for World Cup as well as our community.
I'm Greg Kindle. I'm with the Wyandotte Economic Development Council. We're excited to see how our businesses can be engaged, how we can focus efforts here in the county to do any celebrations that this group ultimately determines would be a community celebration and how we can support that.
I'm Stacy Taylor Shelk. I'm representing Legends Outlets and Village West Association. We're most excited about the same. I'll reiterate what Greg said, to bring the most people to Village West, to Kansas City, Kansas, to celebrate this huge event, bring business to all of our local and national retailers.
My name is Raul Villegas and I'm with Soccer Nation. Been living in Wyandotte for 25 years and I've been developing soccer youth in this area. And I'm very happy to be part and, contribute to this task force.
Hello, everyone. I am Ruben Rodriguez. I am the head men's soccer coach for the Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And when I was asked to do something like this, I was very excited to see something like this come to our city. I follow international soccer quite a bit, so I'm really happy to see some of these players come to our city. So I'm really grateful for this experience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fabiola Riobe. I'm the Vice President for Educational Innovation and Global Programming for Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And like all of my colleagues said before, we're really excited to really explore how we can enhance the workforce and create opportunities for the county.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pam Curtis, and I'm a state representative serving the 32nd District, which is downtown Kansas City, Kansas. And then when I'm not in the legislature, I work for our former mayor, Joe Reardon, at the Greater Kansas City Chamber. So needless to say, I have been in the world of World Cup soccer here for some months as we have focused on it, both in the Kansas legislature, making sure that we can bring those critical state dollars that are going to be needed for our participation. And then also at the Greater Kansas City Chamber, we have been very much involved in the World Cup initiative. So I'm very excited. It is such a great opportunity to welcome the world to see not only Kansas City, Kansas, the Kansas City region, but our state of Kansas. So I'm really excited about the opportunities that are ahead of us, and I want us to take full advantage of that. So that is why I'm here and happy to be a part of this task force. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. I'm David Johnston. I'm the County Administrator for the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Not only am I representing the Unified Government on this wonderful committee, but I also serve as a board member on the KC 26 World Cup Committee. And one of my roles to this committee is to be a bridge between the larger discussion arena with the KC 26 committee and bring it home and say, how do we be a player to make this an excellent visitor experience to those who come here? One of the things that we hear from the soccer world, particularly every 4 years, is that other countries love their national team. They take 45 days off and go to the tournament. And therefore, we'll have 4 teams assigned to the Kansas City metro area. And not only do we provide a wonderful arena in Arrowhead to provide the game, but what are they going to do for the 3 or 4 days between matches? So we have to really make this place shine, because the message we want them to take home is, it came to central US Kansas City. People probably never thought they'd come here before, but they had a wonderful experience. And now it's on everybody's radar screen in their home country to come make it a visit. So that's what this committee is responsible for. how do we get our act together on this world stage to be a good ambassador area to these visitors from other countries and make it positive? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Oakman. I'm the police chief with the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. And really the police department's role is safety, protection, and security. And I'm excited to be a part of any event that sheds a positive light on Kansas City, Kansas.
I'm Daniel Soptic, the sheriff for Wyandotte County. Excited to be here as another representative of law enforcement for the entire county. So thank you.
I'm Sean Peterson. I'm the city manager in Bonner Springs. I'm excited to be here representing the city and also on a personal front as a recovering soccer player myself. This is something that I'm really excited to be a part of. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dennis Rubin with the fire department. Along with me is Deputy Chief McLean, Deputy Chief Novak, and Assistant Chief White. The fire department represents essentially 4 really important disciplines. Obviously, we'll take care of fire. If there's any rescue events involved, we'll take that responsibility. We protect the environment with our hazardous materials unit. And of course, that leaves us heavy rescue. So with that, we're excited to be able to help to protect our visitors and guests, and perhaps most importantly, to put this community in a international spotlight where perhaps it hadn't been before. So we're excited to help in any way. As you can tell by the enthusiastic response of my colleagues, we can't wait to help. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Casey Meyer. I'm from the Unified Government Legal Department.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, in the back here. Josh Blackford. I'm with Sporting Kansas City. I serve as the Vice President of Operations and the General Manager of Children's Mercy Park out in Kansas City, Kansas. So very excited to be a part of this committee, very excited to be a part of this task force. I think this is great. I have served as kind of a liaison or a conduit between FIFA, the Sports Commission, as well as our other partners with the University of Kansas and the Kansas City Currents, and discussion about team base camps and visiting team training sites. As you all know, as the Major League Soccer team in the markets, FIFA has looked at us as being kind of experts in the soccer world. But, you know, this isn't a Major League Soccer match. This is a whole new ball game for us, the city and the region, and it's very exciting to be a part of that. So thank you.
Great. And we have a few people joining us online. I see Daniel Silva is one of our task force members. If you want to say a few words.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Daniel Silva, President and CEO of the KCK Chamber of Commerce. Just echo what folks have been saying. Really excited about plugging our community and lifting our community up and ensuring and coming up with creative ways to get these fans to tap into the awesome diversity that exists in Wyandotte County, and you know, making sure that our small businesses have an opportunity to take advantage of this.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online that's a task force member that needs to introduce themselves? All right. Moving on, as the county administrator said, he is a board member of KC 2026. Are there any additional updates you'd like to give from that group?
Well, I think the major thing is we now know the calendar, and we at the board were praying for 4 matches. And when I was at the watch party and we saw that we got our 4 matches, we were like, all right, we did what we expected to do. We're ready to go forward. But then they went to the next column and we got a final 32 match. And we're like, oh, a bonus. And so we were doing jigs and enjoying the success. Well, then we took a glance and they did the last one. We weren't thinking anything else, but all of a sudden they gave us a quarterfinal match. And I think that's where our jaws dropped, because we're going to be home to 2 of the best 8 nation teams in our area. And so we were like, wow, we're going to be on the stage. This really became more important than we envisioned. And so that's going on. FIFA is working with the board of directors on a regular basis. The FIFA way of planning events is not the American way of planning events. We like more information up front and then we make it work. They issue things in drafts. And so we work and then they change their mind and all that. So we have to be very flexible and fluid in working with the organizer of this. But great things are happening at the level. I think one of the things that we're really focusing on how blessed a region we are with facilities. Not only do we have Sporting KC in our backyard at the Legends, we have the training facility out there as well. We have the women's soccer stadium being built now, which will be ready by that time. And we have the University of Kansas close by, Kansas State, that have soccer facilities, state of the art. We're well positioned to be a welcoming host for the teams assigned here. There are, the board is still talking about how do we reach out to the local communities. And to do that, we just don't have enough information on what to talk about, except encourage groups like this. How do you want to present yourselves? I think, we have certain assets in Wyandotte County, something like not only the soccer venues, but also the taco trail. We do assume that a wide array of soccer playing nations are Spanish speaking. There's a good odds that one will be assigned here. But how can the taco trail become organized? That's one of the tasks I assume that our chair will be working with us to organize as part of us showing off Wyandotte County to the world and reaching out to local businesses to participate. That's a big part of our responsibility. We have talked a little bit about the challenges of doing wayfinding and also having, after we know who we are hosting, what languages we will have to get materials out, get signs out into the community to help people get around and understand what we have to offer for their experience. So that's going on. Also just want to delineate some of the roles that KC 26 has. They have the responsibility of building on big issues like transportation. We'll have a transportation component, but we really aren't responsible how to get masses of people from the airport to downtown, get people to Arrowhead, get people from their hotels to the practice arenas. That's going to be a big responsibility that KC 2026 has to deal with. So that's a load off our back. But then how do we make sure that we get people around, like wayfinding and having multilingual indicators to help them navigate our fair county? And so that's going to be part of that. How do we entertain them? I do know that there is going to be a push for mini fan fests. The big fan fest is downtown KC but we're investing in Memorial Hall to bring it up to modern standards, like bringing technology into the arena to where it can be a fan fest location. If there are other areas in our county that would like to host, when we get information from FIFA, we'll get it out to everybody so they can make that decision. We have a wonderful partner with our KC, Sporting KC folks. They're looking what role they play in this. It's ever evolving, like he said. But the KC 26 is looking at making sure they've asked the state legislators for assistance because we are a by-state experience. And I'm being a newbie, I can say that this is quite an experience. But they're also working to deal with these macro issues like security and transportation and how they can use their infrastructure to be a good host in a bigger level. And then how do we fit into that? So I think that sets the stage. We're not here to do the big lifting, this committee. That's KC 26's responsibility. And they're working diligently toward that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very, very much. So I think that takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is really setting up the priorities and really the workflow of this group. In front of you, and it was included in the agenda in the packet, is kind of my initial attempt at this, where I, in talking with a lot of folks, tried to put together a list of some of the topics and areas of focus that we need to think about as we plan for this event. And in my mind, it really falls into three categories. The first is I call it planning logistics, and that's just making sure we're ready. And I think as the county administrator said, a lot of those things are probably going to live with KC 2026 and aren't going to be things that we'll have to tackle specifically. But I think there are some elements there that we can provide recommendations to the county to make sure that we are ready for this event. So it's things like workforce. When we think about the number of just from the visitors, which is my world, visitors coming in, making sure that we have adequate staffing at our hotels and at our restaurants and all of our attractions and retail operations, I think will be quite a job for this entire region. But we also know that Wyandotte County we have a large opportunity for the citizens and the residents of Wyandotte County to participate in these opportunities. We tend to be one of the largest suppliers for tourism and hospitality jobs in the entire region. So I think one of my goals is make sure that we fill our staffing opportunities first before we export our residents and they take those opportunities in other counties. So making sure that those jobs are attractive here. I think another thing that I've heard is the resident impact, and how is this going to impact residents in our county, both in positive or potentially negative ways, and making sure that we can think about those things and how we can best prepare for those things. And so whether it's participation opportunities in neighborhoods, or whether it's housing, where are all these visitors going to stay, and how does that affect things like the short-term rental market or the hotel market and potentially even the rental market here in our county. One of the other things that I've heard has come up is policies, and this is really on the UG side of are there codes and things that may need to be altered to make way for some of the things that need to happen. Safety and security, again, I think this is a topic that will largely reside with 2026, but when we think about having visitors on the ground here, how do we make sure that they have the best experience possible here in Kansas City, Kansas? Legacy and, what does this leave behind? I think everyone at the state's level and the federal level and every level wants to make sure that this isn't just about this 45 days, 60 days, whatever it ends up being, but how does this leave a positive impact on our community and are there opportunities to create things that will live far beyond this event that make a positive impact in our community. And then finally, funding. We are a task force to make recommendations. We have no budget. And I think a lot of the things that we will be talking about cost money. And so I think as we make those recommendations, thinking about, I think it's really important for us to think about how could those things be funded, either privately or publicly, and making those recommendations in a way that they're realistic, that they are achievable for our county. I guess I'll stop there because I don't want to be talking the whole time. And in this list, I would love to just have some discussion. Are there things and areas that jump to mind for you? Are there things that are missing, things that you see are really important and priorities here?
Thank you, Alan. This is Pam Curtis. So I know it's real easy to jump forward to the event and thinking about that, but just looking at the short time that we have, I just think there's a lot of preparation that we need to do. And we have experience with this, right? You know, we are able to get crowds in and out for speedway races. So, and we know what the cost is, you know, to our taxpayers in hosting such events. So I think we have experience that we can draw on for this event, even though it's like so much huger. You know, I know when they presented the budget recommendations to the state legislature, there was a line item in there that did talk about legacy projects. And so I think that that's kind of important when we are thinking forward, you know, to focus on what are those things that we can do today that's going to help us be great host for all of these visitors from all over the world, but that will also stay with us and benefit us long beyond that. So, you know, I think some real thought to that would be helpful. And then one other thing that I'll mention quickly that comes to mind real quick is that on a call with the White House, that they said they want to make sure that all of the World Cup cities in America are prepared and have the things that they need to really shine. And so they have indicated that they would be willing to prioritize infrastructure projects that are for World Cup host cities that would benefit us in hosting the World Cup. So that would be another thing, just, you know, outside of the AC 2026, but for us to really look at locally, like how we can really benefit from those kinds of things.
Alan, this is Greg Kendall with the EDC. You and I have had some previous conversations about this idea of some legacy pieces, and particularly around the workforce side of it, which is something that we've spent some time focusing on. So I'll throw it out here and see, you know, where it lands in the long term, but we've really been talking about some real-time language translation opportunities, something that would extend beyond Wyandotte County would really be something I think could be useful, not just for the World Cup, but could be very useful beyond that in our workforce setting in general. And so I throw that out there because it could end up being a fairly big ticket item. We have had some conversations with Dan Lally over at Sporting as well about some of their relationships. We would love to eventually get to a device. We've been trying a few out already and saying that they don't work quite the way we want them to. But I do think that we have some time to put something like that together, which could be very helpful as we have a customer experience, then that visitor experience where folks might be directed to somebody who speaks that particular language. This group of people could respond to them, or and maybe there's multiple ways to use a device like that. But that's just an idea that we've been toying with for some time now.
I'd like to piggyback on the legacy aspects, if you don't mind. I also wrote down some soccer legacy aspects. In 1994, U.S. soccer really was what was around, and that gave birth to a Major League Soccer. And so all of these soccer leagues in the communities began to sprout, and you can see it today. It's just an amazing sports industry. And so what's the next level to that? I mean, we've gotten quite a bit into soccer in the United States, but what's the next level to that? So especially in our communities, and as putting my education hat on, what are the student mentorship or coaching opportunities that we might be able to envision so that once the games are done, once all of the excitement of it and all the busyness of it, what remains in our communities is not just a memory, but something that we can push forward towards mentorship and the creation of of sportsmanship. I'm thinking about FIFA Fair Play. FIFA Fair Play is this idea of getting along, playing by the rules. All of that is really important, I think, for our communities as a legacy element once all of the amazing aspects of the actual competition take place.
Anyone have anything else on this topic? All right, the next area that I had identified is how do we promote Wyandotte County businesses and events to visitors? You know, outside of the matches, you know, when people have downtime, I think one of the big goals that I see, especially, you know, with my lens of Visit Kansas City, Kansas, is how do we get visitors to spend their free time here? And how do we get them to spend time in Wyandotte County? And so I think that's a really, really important part of this, providing recommendations of how we can best market Wyandotte County and our existing experiences that we have here. So I'm thinking of things like advertising and promotion to visitors and to fans that are here in Kansas City. As Daniel mentioned, small business promotion. We have a wealth of small businesses here in Wyandotte County. And so how do we make sure that they are able to get their fair share of business during this opportunity? Cultural heritage. And we are the most diverse county in the region. And we have, I think that's one of our real opportunities here with the World Cup. We have world ties here within our population, and I think there's a real opportunity to kind of leverage that in how we position and promote Wyandotte County to visitors. Places to stay. We obviously, you know, the more visitors we can get to stay here, we know when a person stays, they spend more money, and so how do we do that and maximize those opportunities? That may be the challenge. I think there's going to be more demand than there are places to stay. So how do we manage that? And finally, special events. The county administrator mentioned there could be some opportunity for some regional fan fests, but outside of that, you know, how do our attractions and business districts and neighborhoods welcome visitors into their areas with special events throughout the World Cup? So would participate any thoughts or feedback, additional items or areas of importance that you see in this bucket?
Hey, Alan, this is Daniel. All great points to that small business engagement piece. And maybe this is a question for our county administrator, Johnston. Has there already been talk of creating an app for the fans? And if so, you know, how do we ensure that our businesses are included in that, right? And making sure that we don't miss that opportunity. And then the other piece, I think it'd be pretty cool if we can start priming some of these businesses to kind of promote that they're going to have watch parties, or if you go to this restaurant like Brits, that's an experience unto itself. And if you've ever seen a watch party, a Croatia play at St. John's, like that would be really cool to show off. It would just be a matter of how we get the people there for that. And we really don't need to get all of them, right? If we can just get small batches, I think that would do wonders for some of these small businesses. Just a few thoughts.
You know, and Daniel, I'll say as a follow-up to that, I think one of the, I've heard from several folks that want to be involved in some way since this task force has been announced. And one person in particular has talked a lot about how do we, as you said, get small businesses ready, but even how do we prepare potential business owners and folks that maybe have an idea that maybe, you know, have something that they may want to sell or make money, and how do we help them get ready and get licensed and get their plans in place so they can be ready for 2026.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Remind me, I think they're saying 33% of the hotel rooms will be on the Kansas side. So do we have any idea, like hotel capacity, what we have? Are there things being considered, like for that period of time, maybe relaxing some short-term rental? Are those kind of things that we need to think about as far as in that bucket of places to stay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that goes to kind of a little bit of kind of the codes and ordinances. I think short-term rental is one of the real things. I think hotels in general, I believe the block is within the hotel radius that they're anticipating being used is a 2-hour drive from Kansas City. So, that takes you almost into the Wichita area. I think hotels are going to be full. And so again, I think on the hotel side, it may be more about making sure they're adequately staffed. But I think then that's going to create a lot of compression in the market, as you said. And so people are going to be looking for alternative lodging opportunities, short-term rentals, which I know has been a big regional discussion and has been a discussion here in the UG. So I do think there's probably having a discussion about what that would look like, and are there recommendations for this group on, what we want to do there? Because there's, from a visitor standpoint, I want all the visitors possible, but we have to balance that with what's best for neighborhoods and our residents.
Yes, most definitely. We need to make sure that everybody can still get to work and to all the places and all the appointments that they need to go while we have a ton of visitors to our city. So yes, that's very important.
Alan, this is just a question. Are we thinking, I know that wouldn't be FIFA focused, right? This would be just community events, but if we have neighborhood groups that are thinking, you know what, we've got these teams coming in, so therefore we think that we'd like to do some sort of festival or event tied to highlighting, our heritage culture that would bring folks in. But are we thinking then that there would be some sort of, grant applications through, whatever process that we come up with? But, say we're going to sanction 3 of these in the community, or, one a week kind of thing, right? There'd be one festival every week for the 6 weeks period, however that might work out. But allocating some amount of funding that then those neighborhood groups could apply for, and that would be sanctioned, but then there'd have to be some connection back to all of the safety engagement as well to make sure they were safe environments, those kinds of things. But I was just trying to think that there might be some value in creating some sort of structure like that, because there'll be some groups that are like, hey, we don't want it to all be focused on the Village West area where it would naturally kind of flow. We want to bring that focus maybe into other parts of the community. But you do want to have some sort of structure and some certainty about, well, where do we want to put any energies? Beautification would flow into that as well. And maybe that would be another sort of sustainable long-term piece of it of, hey, because we've got folks coming into this part of our community that we definitely want to highlight on a national stage, then we're going to guarantee we do some amount of, I don't know about sidewalk improvements, but say sidewalk, and we're going to put in a certain amount of safety and security and flowers, those kinds of things to make it look nice. It's just an idea of how do we create that structure?
Yeah, I love that. And maybe one of the tasks for this group is to create some sort of a neighborhood resource kit where we can provide recommendations for how neighborhoods can get involved, and potentially that could involve funds. Again, it's finding the fund, where those funds would come from. But I love that idea.
Alan, we might also be able to leverage some of our state dollars in that, because I think I know there's grants through the Kansas Creative Arts Industry that could perhaps help with some of those types of projects, but there might be other resources too at the state level where we could just leverage some of those grant dollars and bring some of them here to help us with that.
Alan, we may want to consider putting some kind of a map together that identifies those hot spots in those places within our community. We have a tendency to know how to get around this community. Hopefully we'll get a lot of our KDOT projects finished up and some of our local projects so that we can include them on the mapping process. But I think there's points of interest in our community that we could highlight through a colored map of some sort. That would be a piece that could be advertised. We could ask some small business to advertise on those and have those out at the hotels and or to visitors, so they won't have to think about where they got to go. They can look at the map and find a way to get there.
Anything else?
Alan, right here.
Sorry.
Is there an effort to try to find some synergies with other similar city preparation teams like ours to sort of exchange ideas on the Missouri side, or even in some of the other host cities, just to have a sort of an initial idea of the possibilities. Obviously, every city has its own context, but just an idea to sort of generate additional connections and possibly resourcing of each other. Just a thought there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There is an existing group called the Kansas City Regional Destination Alliance, which is a group of the local convention and visitors bureaus in the area. I believe they have about 15 members roughly. So it's all of the major communities in the area, and they work cooperatively. So I think this would be a great opportunity for them to help promote things going on in their communities, you know, the key attractions that they have.
I was just going to comment on the cultural heritage. There's just so many opportunities there. You know, you think about, and I think it may have been my boss, Joe, that pitched this idea. So I'm stealing it from him. But just having schools adopt a team, or, you know, you could even extend that to neighborhood groups where you adopt a team and then you kind of create this, you know, synergy here, you know, locally. So those are just a couple of ideas that came up. I know there's going to be plenty of opportunities for our cultural heritage to both share what we have here and then also, you know, to experience what they all bring as well. So.
To that point, I think about ticket access. You know, not everybody's going to be able to go to a match. So I know from '94, in my experience, there was a lot of exhibition games on the periphery of the actual games that allowed for communities to host national teams or even teams that weren't playing in a World Cup came to the US to have competitions with local teams. And that just brought people together. If they weren't able to go to the stadium to actually watch a match, they at least got that close, that much closer to a national team or even one of the teams that are featured in the World Cup, something like that.
You know, and just to close out this section on the cultural heritage part, you know, this is a key point of our tourism promotion of Kansas City, Kansas. You know, as I talk about our tourism product, we kind of divide it into two halves. We have what I call the ready-made attractions. Those are our big attractions, you know, going to a sporting match, going to Hollywood Casino, going to the Legends, and I could name off about 12 other things. But those are easy things for visitors to find and to know how to have that experience. You go have the experience and then you go back to your hotel or whatnot. But we also have a whole lot of great neighborhoods here in Kansas City, Kansas, with a lot of rich history and food traditions. And those things are harder for visitors to find because there's a lot more work to find those things. And so I think that's one of the things we've been working on at Visit Kansas City, Kansas, is how do we make those experiences more accessible? We did that first through the Taco Trail of really trying to elevate those small businesses into something bigger. So that's one of the things I know our organization is working on right now. We're actually working on a trail, a second trail that we'll be launching in the coming months called the KCK Legacy Trail that will highlight more history and cultural sites in neighborhoods around Wyandotte County that will focus on the main groups that settled Wyandotte County. So you'll be able to take these journeys to learn about these histories. But I think we're also working on some ways of how can we connect different businesses and neighborhoods and events with world ties, because I think that could be an option. Good. Anything else? Marketing and events. And then the third area that I had on here was what I called on-site experience. And this is really how we welcome visitors into Wyandotte County and make sure they have a good experience while they're here. So, you know, if we think about how they get into our community, what they experience as they're coming into our community, what happens when they're on the ground, walking around our neighborhoods, visiting a site, all of those kind of logistical things. So, you know, these can be some bigger issue things. It's things like placemaking. You know, how do we make sure that in the main areas where visitors going to be, it looks great and it's attractive and it's a great experience. Beautification. How do we make sure that those entry zones and those key zones where visitors are going to be places where visitors want to spend time? Signage has been mentioned already. We currently don't have a countywide tourism signage plan. I'm not sure that we can get there by 2026, but thinking about how we can make sure that it's easy for visitors to locate key sites and attractions. Transportation and parking, as you heard, I think a lot of those things will be dealt with KC 2026 as it relates to official events, but making sure that we have kind of a plan of how can we get people around Wyandotte County and maybe even how do we connect key attractions so we make it easier for people to go between attractions. Any thoughts anyone has on on-site experience?
Hi, Alan. This might be a non-factor, but one of the biggest things that I had noticed was maybe an opportunity that we need to explore is going to be our broadband and internet connectivity. We're going to have a lot of people coming in with different capabilities, more devices, more people trying to get hotspots, a different type of hotspots. So I think it'll be important for us to ensure that our capacity to get people online and on the internet is not only secure, but it's fast.
I think that's an excellent point about the broadband capacity because, that's going to be real important. People are going to want to be connected. And another opportunity, because there are some state dollars available to help with broadband currently. So that, again, is another bucket of money that we should probably explore to see if there's something there that we could tap into. And then Ellen, when you were up for the State Tourism Day in Topeka, you, Bridget, and I, Job, who is our State Tourism Director, had a conversation about signage in terms of, is there a way to create like a signature kind of signage, the place where people stop and take their pictures in front of? And I know your thought on the signage went much further than that, but that would be something that maybe we could accomplish, would be a signature sign, whether it be welcome to Kansas, welcome to KCK, whatever, that people would actually seek out and take their pictures in front of. So that gives us a lot more worldwide exposure.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all for making sure people understand they're in Kansas City, Kansas, or in Wyandotte County, and how can we create photo ops and opportunities for people to do that. I think one of the other things I've had several people talk about is art, and how do we, you can think of that from both a placemaking and a beautification opportunity of, whether it's something temporary. I think an idea was, bringing back the cows or the hearts, but make it soccer balls, right? Yeah. Or if it's something that could be more permanent, one of the ideas brought to me was, is there a way to take the large grain elevators we have along the highways and create some sort of major mural or something there? So I think there potentially are a lot of opportunities to look at how can we create some kind of signature and lasting pieces here in Wyandotte County. Anything else on these topics? So I think what I would love feedback on, like I said, this has kind of come out of my brain, and I feel like there's these three areas for us to focus on that maybe I don't know if we want to treat those as committees or work areas. Do you like, in terms of we think about how we want to structure our work as a committee, do you like kind of dividing and either forming committees or having work sessions around each of these areas and then potentially diving deeper into some of the topics in these areas? I guess I'm just looking for any feedback on kind of how you would like to see this group kind of structure itself.
For me, I think I look at this as a big holistic sort of matrix, and I think everybody here brings a lot to the table on each and every single one of these little bubbles here. I think of things that, again, you have it as a legacy but I also look at it as a cultural heritage. When I think of things that are already in place here in town, we talked a little bit about the small business community, but you know, I think of things like Roscoe's in Edwardsville as a barbecue place, and Quentin's and Bonner and everything in between. That these things are all here. So I do just want to say I like the idea that these are broken up the way that they are, but I think all of them are tied together in a lot of ways. And I think there's a lot of experience around this table, and that could bring a lot to light. And again, I just want to point out that there's a lot of things that are already in place that I think we just need to highlight those and expand those opportunities. Another example that just comes to mind as we're talking is we have Wyco Sports, we have Bonner Springs, you know, sports, we have sporting rec. These are things that, again, to bring up the legacy piece of '94, you know, MLS was a byproduct of that, but it was really come about because of that grassroots efforts, because of things that were already in place. So again, I just want to offer those comments.
I think the buckets that you have make sense. They're broken up. It's, you know, it gives some shape to our work. I'm having trouble figuring out where I want to focus and where I'm best to focus. So I want to be involved in everything. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think, you know, we may need a few of these more larger discussions first before we do kind of naturally find our place on, you know, where we want to really focus and concentrate on. And perhaps it might be helpful to have, you know, a few conversations with, you know, like perhaps Bridget Joe would be a helpful discussion. Perhaps knowing what the Kansas Department of Transportation plans as far as transportation needs in the area. I don't know, like our other law enforcement, I know security is going to be huge during that time. And we also need to be very focused on cybersecurity and, you know, what having everybody here is going to, you know, bring in that area as well. So, you know, maybe having a few other discussions kind of focused on some major topics might be helpful in shaping up.
Alan, I would anticipate many of us have expertise in certain fields that many of us won't. But in following up with Mr. Pedersen's comment, I think we can all pitch in and help wherever we feel there may need some assistance and learn from others. But I think all of us bring to the table, and there's probably more that should probably come aboard that maybe we haven't recognized yet. But if there's a specific field, I would think that that's what we would look at. I'm looking at the policies and ordinances and codes. I know that that's where I'm going to be able to assist in on the local level. But at the same time, I do see some other things that I want to be involved with, like the beautification aspect, the transportation aspect. I think there's ways that some of this will overlap with one another, but I'm willing to help wherever needed. But I would just think that we would, if we have a particular piece, that maybe we start getting the names of those and let somebody run with them. Get us started.
So do you like the idea? I think what I'm hearing is we take these bubbles, not necessarily form committees, but we have our meetings structured around specific topics here. And maybe we can bring in experts or even some community comment from these areas, and we could kind of go with a couple topics and set our agendas that way. So
Sure, and I'll give an example. I looked at the transportation aspect. I looked at how much street cars will be playing into Missouri. What connectivity are we going to have from there into here? Is it going to be KCATA, additional bus routes? Is it going to be microtransit, Lyft, Uber? Are we going to have a taxi company that we could encourage to come here during that time? These are things that can come out of those discussions that may become, I'll borrow your word, legacy for us in the future. I mean, if we learned anything from the incident called COVID here, that we can be very resourceful, and it gives us a chance at that time to look at how our policies are either restrictive or archaic or need to be changed. So I just think that those are opportunities for us. I would call, you know, like KCATA in and have them give us some guidance as to what they've seen as mass transit on events. I was heard about the ethnic festival. I could think of 3 different weekends and 3 major locations that we could have major ethnic festivals. We could block all the section of town. And if transportation could go there and do a drop off, then where does everybody going to park? I mean, these issues all sound great and easy, but they need to be very, we need to be very prudent in how we think through them. But I know that people in this room are quite capable of doing that.
Alan, I'd just add 2 pieces of information. We do have a wealth of talent sitting around this, but we also have, if we want to attack a lot of these bubbles that we have on this worksheet, we need to be inviting of other talent within our community for involvement. So we need to, I think one of the things we need to do is set up some sort of structure that will be an invite to people to widen this group. We're kind of a coordinating group, but widen this group to get more citizen and business input on how this, and I'm a little sensitive on time. This is less than 2.5 years from, or 2.5 years from now. Used to be when I got here was over 3 years. Well, now time is compressing and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So if we can maybe have a sense of urgency within ourselves, it will make this thing progress faster than we might normally go through. So there is a sense of urgency. But I think we also need to think about how are we going to invite citizens who and businesses who want to be involved. And then the third thing is on funding. You can't rely solely on county or KCK or Bonner Springs or Edwardsville to foot this bill. There's going to have to be a private funding strategy defined and actionated to ask for financial contributions from our private sector and private individuals. So no one wants to talk about that, but that's a reality. The taxpayer can't put this entirely on their own. And I know that KC 26 has that same attitude as well, as they're looking at larger corporate donations. Well, we need to look at larger donations outside of government to pay a lot of these active bills. So those are 3 urgent things that I throw out there: invitation, understanding of time for urgency, and probably start working on a fundraising strategy.
Excellent. I think excellent comments for us to consider on all 3 of those areas. I did have the public feedback component as one of my things, and I do agree. I think there's been a lot of folks that have reached out to me again, just in this interim, wanting to contribute in some way. So I think opening up this discussion to a wider group, in my head, maybe that was committee meetings, but maybe it's structured as listening sessions around each of these topics where we can set a time, and then whoever from this group wants to be part of that discussion, but we can invite a wider swath of the community. I would also love to work with the UG staff on maybe we can have some sort of a feedback instrument where we can kind of collect feedback from the public on some of these topics and ideas.
Yeah, I just got a few comments. One, I think your breakdowns are fine. And I think that, as to the county administrator's point, we need to make sure that we're aware of time. So we really don't have a lot of time. And I think that each of these committees could be formed to do this in separate work groups. And in this setting, I think we should come back and report what each of these committees have done, because if we have this large task force, we won't really get any work done. We'll just be talking. So I think we really need to get started working, because we have 2.5 years. And planning large events, I've been involved in a lot, even with Super Bowl, Royals, simple things like parades. We start that a year in advance. And that's just a fraction of the people that are coming to this event. So, and another point, I'm on a few other committees that's dealing with this, especially from the safety, terrorism part, kind of to your point. So I think you'll get some overlap from members on this committee that will be able to update you on the bigger committee. So those are just my thoughts.
Just back to the topic on fundraising, do you anticipate that we will have, how will that work? Where will that money go?
I think you look at these bubbles, they're all going to have expenses. And some will have a direct ask from our local governments, but not all. So there's going to have to be a portfolio to develop, because contributors want to know what they're going to be investing in. So, and then what type of indication do you have that this was because of company X or business Y or group? Whatever, there has to be some sort of policy, and then what are we going to be asking them to contribute for? That's part of the planning that needs to be done. But also understand that those folks are going to be asked to contribute by other groups as well as this thing moves forward. So the sooner we get our ask in, I think, better position that we are, then less competition for the ask as we go forward. It's closer to World Cup. There's going to be people that are tapped out, or I just received my 7th request. Where do I make the decision? And so if we get it in early, it's easier that way. But we have to define what we're going to be asking for.
Okay, so we are gonna need to have a number. I mean, we've got to have a number to go off of. So I think, I mean, this could go on forever. I think we divide this into 3. We have 3 separate meetings. We prioritize actions and we put a dollar amount to it. We have to know what we're working against. I mean, we can dream up everything we want on here and it's going to cost millions of dollars, and we're not going to have that. So how much are we getting from the government? How much are we getting from the state? How much are we getting from wherever the money's coming from? In all of my experience asking where those go. You come to me and you say, can you sponsor this for $12,000? I'm going to say yes, but this is what I want my money to go to. So we have to know that when we go to the public businesses and the private entities. Off of that, I think we also have to realize that there's going to be people in this community who are excited about this. And I think we have to really be sensitive to that, and to find a way to change that perception of, oh my God, the traffic and, you know, this is a lot of work in the community and the neighborhood. And I think we have to be really sensitive to that. I think it's going to be more than we anticipate, as you know, all of us are so excited about it, and we see the uptick in the sales and the stays and the, you know, reputation of our area. But I think we have to think about our neighborhoods and our small communities.
I would share that that is something that did come up, especially the small communities in the discussion when the state was considering the budget amount that goes to KC 25 or KC 26, in the impact to the small communities, because as Alan mentioned, it's within a 2-hour radius. So, you know, around Kansas City, we do have a lot of smaller communities, and they were concerned about that impact. I think most of them have been relieved in that they see, you know, far more the benefit and, you know, the excitement around welcoming people from all over the world. So but you're right, we do need to make sure that we're communicating it appropriately and that in a way that does get people excited and realizing the opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a planning function and then there's an education function. And I think both are going to be very important.
Hey, Alan, can I just ask maybe for clarification's sake? I think we've all done planning at some level where there's this storming and then there's eventually some norming. So I'm just curious from your standpoint, what is the ultimate outcome of this task force? Because I think as we're kind of going through it, what are we, you mentioned earlier, we want to put something together to give that to the mayor and the full commission, but what exactly are you envisioning that is? Is that some sort of report? Because I think of things that are on here like safety and security, which I'm not sure, you know, from a law enforcement or a fire standpoint, you know, I don't think we want to sit here and dictate what these guys are going to do necessarily, but they need to know what they're up against based off of the recommendations from a reporting standpoint, I think is probably fair. So again, I'm just kind of hoping to get some clarity as to what exactly, you know, the goal is of the committee.
Yeah, and you know, I think in my head, it is about issuing a series of recommendations and maybe that comes as a report, but I guess I would turn it, you know, we've got the Mayor Pro Tem and the County Administrator. I guess what can we best help you with from this report is presenting a series of recommendations in these areas of, you know, here's a bit of a blueprint in some of these areas. How can we best help you?
I think I just want to add is that it's more than just providing the government entities recommendations. This is activating our community into action. And we're going to be the coordinators of that outreach into the community because we are the focal point for this. It's a task force for a reason. We have a soccer tournament, international soccer tournament here. How do we respond? And we've heard communication from all the panel members that there are certain areas, THEIR, want to be involved. And that means work, period. That means I'm expecting Dan Silva with the Chamber of Commerce to activate our businesses to get moving on this. Village West, you know, how are we going to handle demonstrations for soccer while the Monarchs are playing? Because that season doesn't end because of this event. So we're going to have massive hearing. Plus, we also want our businesses to remain open and making sure that parking is designated for soccer so the consumer can go to the businesses. And so there's work that needs to be done that needs involvement from not just these people sitting around this table, but that's why we need to get it out there and get more people to make it. My mom, God rest her soul, she was one of those parents, we probably all had them, where they used sayings to accentuate their message. But, you know, more hands, less work was one of hers. That's how she got our brothers to get our chores done faster. But also inch by inch is a cinch. We can't look at the big picture and say it's daunting. We break it up into manageable parts. And as you attack it and make smaller accomplishments, you look back a year and see how much you've done, how much we've gotten organized in our community. That's why it takes work, but we can't continue to just focus on, man, this is daunting, this is big. We got to get our hands dirty and get working. And these are great sub areas that we do need to pay attention to within all of Wyandotte County. But it's not going to be this group that's going to get all this done. It's not going to be our governments that are going to get this done. It's getting everybody and their mother and father working to get this thing done in partnerships and sweat and passion, because the legacy is, when's the last time Wyandotte County has been on the international stage? Been a long time, if ever, in a positive way. And we need to shine. And it's going to be everybody's efforts to make it shine. You ask about numbers, we'll get there. I don't want numbers to get in the way of getting groups formed to come up with ideas that we then can put numbers on it and then look at budgets. We need to come together to think about what are we going to ask corporate Wyandotte to pay for and how much. But we have to start by having these discussions. But then I go back to what I said earlier. It's less than 2.5 years away from now. So we got to get moving.
Yeah, so, you know, I love that perspective, and I think it's about recommendations, but then finding the hands to do that work. And you know, and I think if we identify opportunities, but we can't find someone that's willing to take that on or pay for it, then that may not be a good recommendation. So I think coming up with a plan where we can identify who's going to execute those things feels like a good goal here.
And Alan, our food and service industry is going to be taxed. And we're going to be competing with every other small venue and community around us. It may be that we have to look at how we're going to train, even at a temporary basis. We've got a number of schools that have culinary programs. We have students involved in those programs. You have organizations that look for credit hours and community service hours. It might behoove us to look at some of those and get them some skill training in which to have them out be the face of our food and service industry. And plus it would help grow the feed organization through that opportunity. So just food for thought. But I know that the food and service industry, as you all know, Al, is going to be taxed tremendously.
So I think that brings us to what's been talked about is there's not a lot of time here. So what do we feel like the cadence should be of our meetings? How frequently would you guys like to see this task force meet?
What is our exact timeline? Do we have a date certain that we want to be as prepared and report out and have a manual ready to go? Is that what our end product should be? That it's going to be our book on the shelf that we're going to refer to? Do we have a date certain? It might help us divide up, as a county administrator said, take it in chunks instead of trying to do 4 or 5 things at one meeting. May help if we have 2 years. That's 24 meetings we could have. It's 12 meetings we could have. It's 8 meetings we could have, however you want to divide it up. But if we're going to do subcommittees and reports, we should be mindful of that. That time will get away from us quickly.
Yeah, I think setting a end goal is great in a timeline of when we need to have kind of this blueprint into the UG.
Mr. Administrator, how often does your group meet, the larger group?
We have that, we meet monthly. But we've also, at the last meeting, we said as we get closer, we know we're going to be meeting more frequently. Because we're going to get more and more demands out of FIFA and community demands as well. So right now, there is an arm's length. We don't have to meet as frequently, but we also understand that committee's been in place since 21 when the bid was submitted. So it's been organized. It's now formally organized, but it's been organized for at least 2.5 years. So they're ahead of the game in developing partnerships and relationships into the metro region. This is day one for Wyandotte County. So that's the urgency that's behind that message. I guess what I would say is that to keep things going on is to help our chair keep organization out of chaos is submit your ideas on what type of subcommittees we need. If not these, or are there missing ones, get it to him so we can do that. What type of ideas about extending the invitation to the public? What type of strategy, what type of message should we have for that invitation? Get that to the chair so we can chew that together. We do have to be very cognizant. This is a public committee. Therefore, we have to be careful about not doing the rolling meetings problem. And therefore, that's where the subcommittees are I think, really important to get the work done and keep it moving and keep it legal. And so if we can make suggestions about the organization other than just the 3 topic areas, but the work groups as well. Get that as soon as possible, and then we can do invitations. We can assign your involvement. The Mayor Pro Tem talked about, he has various interests, but we really need to have you to focus on one, not more than 2 of these interests, because you have your own time as well. But where is your strength that you can contribute to make these things happen? So if you could get your interest to Alan as soon as possible, we can be ready for maybe a next meeting with some really meat to chew on. And maybe it's at the barbecue place that Seth talked.
We had a sheet with everyone's email and contact numbers so that we would be able to reach out and be able to make those connections. I know the broadband issue is a issue that was brought up, and I've already made a contact, and I was wanting to visit with you before we leave, and Pam too, to identify some resources that we may be able to bring to the table and get things started. So just jumping out early.
Yeah, I'm happy. I will distribute to the group the task force list with contact information. So maybe what I propose, as the county administrator said, if you have any specific thoughts on some of these focus areas, and I can work on putting together a proposed schedule, and maybe where we go from here is our next meeting. I don't know if a month sounds too fast or too slow. But in a month from now, we come back with a proposed outline for committee and work groups, and set up a schedule from there.
Would then we be inviting other people? We would chair a smaller subcommittee and then we would invite, okay, it could get out of hand real quick.
I think maybe, if we could set it up where we have within those meetings a public comment session or a way for folks to be able to contribute.
Well, I'm going to do an invite to our friends in the media to help us do this work. So make sure you get wide coverage with our invitation out, okay? That can be a separate special interest story, just making a recommendation. And Alan's always a pleasure to hit the 6 a.m. Sunday morning shows.
Right, so 1 month, does that sound like a good time frame for our next meeting? Does, I can send out is this time of day, I mean, is there any just discussion on any of that? Do you like days, do you like evenings? Send out a scheduler and see what works for everyone.
I just think we have to be conscious if we are asking for public input, the time of day, if we are inviting the public.
All right, well, we'll get something out and look for the date for the next meeting. And then, I said, reach out to me in the meantime if you have any specific thoughts on specific work groups, but we'll structure kind of a plan and a meetings plan and a work group plan. And we will talk about that at our next meeting. There was also a suggestion, if you think this would be helpful, to have, I know former Mayor Joe Reardon has been doing some community presentations on behalf of KC 2026, and potentially have him join at our next meeting to give kind of one of the recaps he's doing. Good. And anything else we need to talk about before we adjourn? All right, thanks everyone for your attendance, and we'll give you a little bit more time back in your day. Thank you.